panel, I'd like to welcome our guests, and thank you, Kira, for stepping in so late. We had a last-minute cancellation on one of our members, but I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. We are talking about diversity, underrepresented communities, and how we can improve those communities. It's going to be a fairly loose conversation in sense of whatever takes off is whatever takes off. We got a few guiding questions, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions from the audience at the end. Did I cover everything? That's pretty much, yeah? I think so. So my name is Shanta Nathwani. I'm the lead organizer for WordCamp Canada, and I work for a company called Codable during the day, and this is my vacation. I've been in WordPress since about 2010. I've also been on the organizing team for WordCamp Toronto. I'm now the current lead meetup for WordPress Hamilton. And I did WordCamp Milwaukee once, right? Yeah, Jamie. And I've done over 40 WordCamp talks. I've lost count. So, but that doesn't mean y'all can't join in, okay? So if you've never given a camp talk, please join us. I'm going to introduce Kira Howe, and we'll go down the line from there. Kira, please.
All right. What Shanta doesn't say is that she kicks people up onto the stage, like as so if you need somebody to just right here, we're going to get
Natasha knows. Yeah, that's exactly.
So I'm Kira Howe. I am a software developer. I mostly work freelance or contract or something, however you want to define it. I do a bunch of stuff for a bunch of people, and some of it's longer than others. So, and I've been building stuff on WordPress. I mean, I've been really heavy into building on WordPress for the last 10 years probably at least, and then before that in 2009 I was doing some administrative. That's where I started on. I had a hosting server, and that's how I started with WordPress. Was one of my clients came to me and was like, hey, I need you to do something on this site.
Right.
Hello everyone, my name is Naisha Green. I am a software developer. I am a LinkedIn learning instructor, and I specialize in teaching WordPress development. I was co-rep of the marketing team for WordPress.org. I am a speaker, a marketer. I am a podcaster. I run the Hopeful Workspace podcast, where we talk about layoffs and the state of the jobs. I am from the southern United States, and I just want to let everybody know we drove 16 hours to be here. And that's because the Canadian WordPress community has shown so much love to me. I keynoted WordCamp Rochester last year, and they came in groups to not only help out and be a part of the community, but again, show love. So I was not going to miss this. I appreciate you guys so much. But I do a lot of things, and I'm just happy to be here. Woo.
I'm Michelle Frechette. I am the Director of Community Engagement at Stellar WP at Liquid Web. I'm also the Executive Director of Post Status, but I'm one of the founders of Underrepresented in Tech, which also includes a podcast and a database to help underrepresented folks in the WordPress and tech communities. I have a whole bunch of other podcasts and other things I do as well. If you're interested in any of that, I'm always happy to have a conversation.
And is one of our fellow honorary Canadians. Yeah.
My family is Quebecois, but I am not.
Right. And Michelle's from Rochester, so we go down there, they come up here. So we are thankful for all of you guys and all of you all for being here and supporting WordCamp Canada. So the first question I have is pretty open-ended. We have, I know in the Make WordPress community, we've had the diversity team. Now we have the DEIB working group, which is Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging, for those of you who don't know the acronym. And shout out to Birgit Olsem for driving this initiative. She's been absolutely wonderful, so props to her on this one. So what I want to know from all of you, and maybe we'll start with Nye and then circle back around, what is your definition of DEIB, or what does it mean when you hear sort of that phrase?
To me, when I hear that phrase, it means that you're around people who are not like you. And not just visibly, but culturally, different from different places. Because when we come to do any work, it doesn't have to be just technical work. We want many different perspectives, because that's how you improve, and that's how you grow, and that's how you advance your work. So to me, it's looking around at we're going to say a table a lot, but at a table, kind of like King Arthur's round table, and seeing people that are different from you, that you can come together with, and everybody can feel like they belong, even though we're all so different.
At Underrepresented in Tech, our mantra is representation without tokenization. And I think that sometimes in a company's rush to try to be DEIB and have diversity hires and things like that, they forget the EIB part of things, which is also, that equity, inclusion, and belonging, which is so important, because people should belong, not just be the token hire. And I think so often, regardless of what your underrepresented status is, whether you're using a scooter, whether you're different color, skin than other people, whether you're part of the LGBTQIA community, all of those things that make us different also help us belong if other people understand us and look at us beyond that into who we really are and how all of that makes us who we are. And so it's about that inclusion, but without being tokenized.
I see it as a culture thing, where if you are truly into that, you're changing culture. You're looking at it as not so much that that everybody understands that there is different opinions, different realities to where the person came from and where they how they think, who they are, and I think it's a indication that you want to do better in that realm, and that you're gonna do the best.
So in your own environments, let's take out the WordPress community for a second, we'll come back to that. But like in your work environments, in your home environments, in your own communities, what I call your physical communities, would you say, we'll start with Michelle, would you say that those areas are inclusive, or is there anything they can improve, lightly of course, like what can they improve, just sort of generally?
So how I'm underrepresented, first of all, women make up at least 50% of the world, but we're still underrepresented in workspaces and physical spaces, right? So as a woman and as a disabled woman, I can speak from that, right? And so as far as accessibility goes, for me, physical accessibility, we have a lot of work to do still, right? So this physical space here this weekend is wonderful. I have had, they put a ramp in for me to be able to be on stage, and yet I can't reach the soap in the bathroom. So little things like that. There's a green room, but for the speakers, but I can't access it because there's no elevator. So those are little things, right? Because I still have hand sanitizer. I can still find a place to work, but it still feels othering a little bit. And so in my own physical hometown, there's ramps everywhere. But there's stores that don't have paddles. So if I'm not with somebody, I can't get in without really trying to finagle, which I've injured myself before. And so as a disabled person, I think there's still a lot of work to do. We just had a panel earlier about, web accessibility. There's more work to do there too. And we focus as a community a lot on web accessibility, but we also need to remember that when we meet in physical spaces, those have to be accessible also.
We're going to take those back. I promise you. It's on tape.
I'll
okay?
put it in.
We're going to make sure that gets.
I'll make notes so that you have them.
100%. 100%. We'll make sure. Yeah. I know we thought about all of those things, but we'll make sure that gets solved. Yeah. Kira? Yeah. Do you feel like your space, your environment, your work is in an inclusive sort of one? And if not, what can they improve?
For the most part, it's an interesting, from my perspective, I'm the T on the LGBT. And in WordPress and WordCamps and such, I transitioned, what was it, like 8 years ago? And nobody blinked an eye. It was just like, what else? and it was absolutely wonderfully inclusive. One of the things on the other side of that is that I've seen now both sides of technology come up, and male presenting. I was believed. There was this, and it's a funny thing where it's like people say things, and it's like, well, I'm not sure if they actually think I don't know that, or whether that's just part of the underlying mentality as a woman that you just like, hey, we need to make sure you know that about this DNS thing. Well, yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up.
So in my communities, generally, I do feel comfortable, but I want to say the reason that is because I am a person that's not afraid to do the work to make it comfortable. And sometimes that will make people uncomfortable. I don't want to say I don't care, but I think making a space for everyone to be comfortable in, except for the people who just don't care about anything, about being inclusive, that's something I don't really care about. In my hometown, or near my hometown in Columbia, South Carolina, we run a WordPress meetup group. And of course, even if it wasn't in the WordPress guidelines, everyone is welcome and it's inclusive. And we really wanted that because the city I was in, it did not have a lot of people of color or women in the tech space. It's been like that for years. It was like that when I was learning. And we said, hey, we have to change that. And our meetup has grown with the help of so many people. Ninja Forms, Michelle Frechette herself, GoDaddy Pro, they've given us resources to make it inclusive. So wherever I go, if it's not comfortable, I make it comfortable. And not to be selfish, that's not for me. I don't mean like I'm going into space, I want black women to be forefront. I want everybody to feel comfortable. I don't care what your race and background is. I want you to come in and feel like your family. I always say charity begins at home. If our community doesn't feel good, then it's not good. I don't care what my version of inclusiveness is. Sorry.
Don't you think, if we can have some conversation, don't you think that growth comes from discomfort?
Yes.
And if we don't tell people about our discomfort, they won't grow the community to be inclusive of us. So like my stepmother used to say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I'm like, squeak, squeak, because I need to have access to places to go. I mean, I wrote an article, as we all know, 2 years ago called 5 Days Without a Shower, which is my incredibly horrible experience at WordCamp US in 2022 because it was so physically inaccessible that I couldn't even take a shower in my disability accessible hotel room because I can't lift my leg to walk into a bathtub safely. So I made our space incredibly uncomfortable, but I gave them ideas of ways that we could grow. So through discomfort, and it's not even our discomfort, it's making typical people uncomfortable about the way that we experience the world that allows the entire community to grow. So I'm glad you said that.
It's really like it's open. If somebody can have an open mind and listen and understand their uncomfortness, yeah, hopefully they can change. They can look into somebody else's eyes, shoes, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're all saying, if I can paraphrase, is that by being this squeaky wheel, in a lot of ways, we're making people aware that where they may not be aware. They're not necessarily just not looking, but we, for quote normal or like I said, the typical person, they don't think about that because they can step into a shower and for them that is accessible. But, it isn't until we hear those stories, like you said, that we can then change. Yes, I am uncomfortable that we didn't get that right, but now we're going to change it. And that's I think that's what you're saying,
But
right?
we have to have comfort in saying, this didn't work for us.
Correct.
And if it means that I make you uncomfortable where you're like, oh man, we didn't think of that, that's okay, because I'm not saying it with malice.
I know you aren't. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So, I mean, we mentioned the WordPress space a little bit, so we'll start at the top and work our way down again. So, we've heard a lot about the DEIB working group within make.wordpress and where it may or may not be going and whether it's going to get absorbed, and that's all the politics of it. I get that. but let's just talk in general about.
But we need to make them uncomfortable enough to accept it.
Absolutely, but I'm just saying that I know that some of us have more knowledge of it than others, and so in general, go as specific as you want. Okay, like as much as you know it, and whatever. But I would say that now, if we're talking about the WordPress community, whether it's your own local meetup or the WordPress world as a whole, how accessible would you say it is? And if not, how can we make it better? Same question basically, but now taking into the WordPress environment a little bit deeper. Kira, any thoughts on that? No? You don't have to. I'm just taking it from a WordPress spec.
I mean, I'm not part of, I'm not on that committee. I don't totally know.
Well, I'm saying the WordPress world in
I
general
mean,
then.
I can talk in general from my perspective in that, I like everybody should have a voice and should have be able to see, like, the more perspectives we have, give us the more diverse, all kinds of things. Like, I look at so many websites, and you go to the forum, and they're like male or female, and it's like, well, I do land in that binary, but not everybody does. But at the same time, if I'm not sitting there looking at that, I'm not in the group that created that. They just didn't think of that, right? And so I think more diversity in sort of history and in mindsets gives you more diversity in the product you're producing.
For me, it's literally at different events, seeing more people like me. I have so many examples that popped in my mind, but
We can talk about stories as well,
Oh,
but,
yeah,
but by all
yeah.
means, give whatever you got.
Seeing more people who are actually speaking, not just at camps, but in the WordPress community. I kind of came into the WordPress community like a speeding, I don't want to say a speeding bullet. Is that American of me? Like a speeding object.
Locomotive?
A train, yes. And because I was part of Master WP. And I looked around and everybody wanted to interview me. They were like, oh, you're a developer. You're a WordPress developer. You do all this stuff. You're an editorial director. Let's interview you. Let's have you here. And like what Michelle does with Underrepresented in Tech, I would tell people on every show, I shouldn't be the only black woman you're interviewing or black person or woman. Reach out to other people. Don't tokenize me because I might be the first developer you've seen or one of the few. Reach out to other people. Let other people in. Let them be on your podcast. Give them jobs. Job security right now is tough for everybody. It's very tough for minorities. It's very tough for us. The phrase is last hired, first fired. I've experienced that firsthand within the last year. Last hired, first fired. So have more people that, looking like me in the community and having those opportunities is something I really want to see.
Absolutely. So within the WordPress community itself, you were on a call. When I had 1 year of WP Coffee Talk, we had an online, it was during the pandemic, so we had an online celebration. And lots of people were in my Zoom room, and I was having a lot of fun talking to people. And one of the people who was in the room was a man in India. And he said, you should come speak at WordCamp India. And I said, oh, it's very expensive. I couldn't afford to go. And he said, why do you think you would have to spend a lot of money? I said, well, there's airfare, hotel. He says, wait. You don't think that there's 1 million people in India that want to host you and have you in their home? And I said, well, why would they? And he said at the time, and this was 2020, you're the only podcaster that invites Asian people onto their podcast. And I wasn't aware of that at the time, right? And I wasn't trying to be diverse. I just like people, and I want to tell their stories. And until it comes naturally to all of us to want to tell stories and include people from all over, we need to keep saying, you need to invite more people and you need to be inclusive. Because it needs to be something that we just, I see color, but I'm inclusive of color. As opposed to, I don't see color, I'm colorblind, or those things that we used to say in the 80s and 90s. I know some of you are too young to remember, but that's okay. We also need to be inclusive of older people in the workspace. But we do need to think about that. If you have a podcast, look at your guests. Are they primarily white men and a couple of other people? Are you really thinking about inviting, if you want to invite a developer, great. There's more than white men in development. If you want to invite a marketer, great. There's more than white women in marketing because we know there's more women than men in marketing, but they're not all white. So think about not just the optics. It's not about optics. It's about inclusion, right? So think about including. One of the things I talk about over and over, I talked about in Asia, I've talked about other places, is that when you include more people, you get more perspectives. You get more experiences. Because my lived experience growing up is very different than Naisha's, is very different than Kira's, is very different than Shanta's. And I don't want to only tell my story and the stories of people who had similar experiences. So you really want to make sure that you're inclusive so that you're getting so much more experience from the people that are there to tell their stories.
So I have two small examples that I'll give you, at least in the WordPress community, that I've at least exposed to in the last year, if not slightly more. But when you register for a WordCamp, I don't know if you know this, we ask, do you have any allergies? Or anything that, accessibility needs, etc. But the way that the form is phrased, it's not like, do you just have any allergies or something like that. It's phrased, I can't remember. Life-threatening, thank you. Do you have any life-threatening allergies? Why does it have to be a life-threatening allergy? Like,
it can be a mildly irritating one, and it'll ruin your whole weekend.
Right? Like, let me ask this. How many of you, and I've had to actually put that as a thing, because if I don't, there is no other way for me to submit on the standard form that we're given as WordCamp organizers anyways, on the WordCamp registration for attendees, to say, actually, this is an allergy, it's not life-threatening, but if you put mayonnaise on any of your sandwiches or heavy creams, I can't have them. And especially if I'm on a panel like this, you ain't gonna see me. It's not gonna be pretty. So why does it have to say life-threatening? And I know that there was a thread about this a while back, so I'm gonna put that out there. Can we just say, do you have any allergies that are going to affect your enjoyment of the attendance of this camp? Do you have any accessibility needs that are going to hinder your ability if you don't have them? Right? So that's one. Number two, languages. The WordCamp languages are not enabled. Here in Canada, we have two languages. We have English and we have French or Quebecois. We could not enable a multi-language plugin on the site. We had to actually request a duplicate, and Kira was the one to set that up.
We should say,
Go ahead.
we should say we have two official languages, and we have a whole lot of other languages that people speak as well. And to be inclusive with all of that would be lovely.
Yes, because I got to tell you, that was one thing going into organizing this that we did not expect. Right? There's nothing in the documentation that talks about multi-language or anything else. So when we went in, we said, okay, we'll just install it. Like, where's the multi-language thing? There isn't one. Okay, so can we have it installed? No. Well, what do? Well, you have to create a new site. And first of all, you got to ask permission to do that. So that means that anything we created on the main site had to be then duplicated and manually translated by someone else. Yeah, we're all from Ontario, and our French was pretty basic, I would say. Like, I wouldn't trust myself with that. So we actually had to have another person actually go in and translate it for us. Like, we're not doing ChatGPT. Like, sorry, no, it's not happening. Right? That's offensive. So we wanted to make sure of that. So another part of that, as far as the WordPress world goes, because Switzerland is going to have a heck of a time. Four languages, I think. Yeah, Courtney, do you know? Okay. No, I know, but I know you were involved in the language stuff. I didn't mean to call you out. Sorry.
In Switzerland,
Sorry.
there are at least three.
Four languages. We have four.
Yes.
Italian, German, English, and French. That's going to be fun. And that's for WordCamp Europe next year, right? Let's see how that plays out. Anyway, That's sort of my take on it. So so Michelle, you answered a little bit of this to start with. So we'll go back to Nye and we'll go around this way. The average person may not know, like we talked about how do we, make more inclusive spaces? How do we make them more diverse? How do we, what is that term? The Pac-Man, make space, in a conversation for someone to enter. Right? How do we make that space? How do we make whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's our websites? What if there was one thing that you could recommend to the average person? Hey, here's how you just make yourself more aware of it, or something you can do. What would it be?
Go out and talk to people. I am always going out and talking to people because, again, I want any space I run or curate to be inclusive. For example, our older cities' Pride parade and party is always my birthday weekend. So if I'm in town, I'm at the Pride party. I'm partying it up. I'm having fun. I'm out there. But I'm also, while I'm partying, I'm talking to people and I'm getting their experiences. Mm-hmm. Let me meet another person in tech at Pride. I'm in WordPress. I run a meetup. Would you like to come? Sure. I didn't know. Michelle said something very important yesterday in her talk. There are a lot of spaces where if people aren't asked to come, minorities or people who are underrepresented, they won't come because they don't know if they feel welcome. I feel like that, and I guess I'm a middle profile. I can't say high profile person in WordPress, not yet. I'm working my way up.
Yeah, none of us are Michelle level.
Yeah, we're not Michelle.
No.
But there are spaces in WordPress I will not go because I don't feel comfortable there. If you see me there, they kidnap me. If you see me blinking, call my mom and
sorry,
dad.
that's me and Kira. I usually grab her and say, let's go.
Yeah, so go out to people and make them feel welcome. Older people, in our WordPress community in Columbia, South Carolina, our oldest meetup member is 81. He comes out and he uses WordPress and he talks, and then we talk to him, and he's helped us go recruit older people to come to our meetup. So I don't just recruit people who look like me. I go out and I want people to come no matter where they come from. I want them to come in and say, hey, this is a WordPress meetup. I'm comfortable coming in here and learning. So talk to people. We even talked a lot about Canada last night. I asked a million questions because I wanted to know everything. Go meet people, and if you're an introvert, start online. Start on social media. Start what's a way that's comfortable for you. And if you're not comfortable with any of it, come to an extrovert like me who will party with everybody, and I will show you the way.
So you're going to win the trivia in the game this afternoon.
I'm ready. Everybody
Canada
else,
trivia.
I'm ready.
All right, and yeah, it's usually me that drags Kira out. So Kira, if I'm not around to drag you out, what would you do to make more inclusive spaces, or just to recommend to the average person in your own perspective?
So my recommend would be to imagine. So I'm an introvert, so I get adopted by extroverts. That's usually what happens.
Or pulled into panels.
I'm an introvert. I live in my head a lot of the time, and one of the things that I do in my head, especially around stuff like this, is actually put myself in the shoes of the person, and I think everybody could kind of do that. It's like if everybody did that, if everybody looked at the world from whatever height, whatever sideways, whatever perspective, look at the news they're reading, and from a perspective of a person who is in that community that the news is talking about, or look at the if you could convince a group of people who are potentially in power to do that, then I think that whole group will all be the better.
So I've got a couple things to add here, because I always do. First, I would say listen and read and watch. There are so many resources available to you online to learn about other cultures, to learn about the struggles that some of us go through to be included. Underrepresented in tech is just one of them, right? There are so many other resources out there for you. So that's the first thing. And then the thing that I really like to do, and you can ask Jeff because I've dragged him with me everywhere I go, is every time I'm in a meal at a word camp, I will go to a table of people I do not know. And I will introduce myself and learn who they are and what they do. Now, will I remember their names in 2 weeks? Probably not, because that's not how my brain works, but I'll remember their faces. And when I see them again, I'll be able to say hello, and they know there's a friendly face at that next event that they can talk to as well. So if you are an introvert, I know that's difficult, but as an extrovert, you can make other people more comfortable by just saying hello, sitting down to a meal with them, and again, that Pac-Man concept that if a bunch of you are in a circle having a conversation, leave part of it open so that other people can join, and when other people join, move again to make room for more people.
I want to see if there's any questions from the audience. We have some. We're going to grab...
Malcolm, you always have great questions. I was like, there's his hand.
Can you just... Oh, good. We got at least one. There we go. Beautiful. And we'll rotate around. Jamie, we got one over here. And we'll just, maybe tell some stories and stuff. Because God knows, we could probably all write a book each.
Oh, for sure.
On all of this. We could go on for hours, actually, yeah. So let's let somebody else talk for a while. Hi.
So I'm just curious, SHRM, which is like a HR professional association worldwide, they recently have dropped the equity in DEI and are now basically saying it's just D&I. Do you think or feel that the naming matters in any real way, or does that not hit you as something that's important?
Anyone want to take that?
You can go. I have an answer for that.
That is very distressing to me. Equity is very important when we have these conversations because we all didn't start in the same place. And that's why making sure equity is a part of the equation is so important. I've been at jobs where they're like, all right, we got her, she's a software developer, this guy's a software developer, but, this guy, he may have had, 10 years plus of schooling. He got to take off and not work while he was able to become an engineer because his parents had money and, he was of the preferred background in my town, so he got all these internships and he got all these networking chances that I didn't get. But, I became a software developer. Well, you're here now, you're equal. No, we're not. When it comes down to it, we're not going to be offered the same opportunities because of our backgrounds. So equity is very important when we come to making sure our space is inclusive and just letting everyone have the same chance.
Bringing up equity also reminds me of the idea of fairness. And I've never said life's not fair. It's not fair that I don't have a ramp. It's not equitable that I don't have a ramp. Fairness is saying everybody gets the same thing. Equity is saying everybody gets what they need to be successful. And so dropping the E out of that says that doesn't matter anymore. So I would argue against it.
I'm going to throw in my 2 cents as well for that one, because I know that when I attended a conference last year, that a lot of us know it's a big conference. It's not a WordPress one. And a friend of ours had some, accessibility needs, and they asked about, well, rather than going all the way over to the bus, which is a hard thing for her to do, to go from the door to the bus, to then take her back to her hotel, is there an accessible van that can just, not even an accessible van, a van that the VIPs were using, for example, that could just take her there? Well, no, the VIPs are paying for that. And we don't want them to think that we're just giving it away. It's like, well, here's the thing. You're not asking for more than the average person, right? So the equity part of that is if she or he or they are going to experience the event in the same way that everyone else is, right? It's going to take them twice as long to get there, and they have to make those adjustments. Why not give them the same amount of time to get from point A to point B? Why should they have to take more time than anyone else? So I think, just like you've said, the equity part is important here, because it's just about putting us all on the same level. It's not about giving one person more than the other, and those types of things. It's about giving them something that might help them become on par with everyone else. So that would be my take, yeah. A question over here, Ms. Courtney.
Hello, friends.
Hello.
And I say that because you actually are each my friends. Amazing to be here. Given we kicked off this event with Megan's keynote yesterday morning, sharing about specifically the accessibility and DEIB areas that are unique to Canada, and that different languages, the conveyance of messaging and things is lost. I think North Americans, well, Canadians haven't figured out a little better. I'll throw my nation under the bus and say that Americans, xenophobia is a real deal, and we don't have the empathy we need for understanding DEIB beyond our own bubble, if we're even aware in our own bubble. When we look at what does DEIB look like globally, because what it means in America is not the same thing as what it means in Canada, is not the same thing as other continents. I'm just curious if you've got any thoughts or ideas around how you can encourage us to consider the DEIB needs unique to unique areas. And maybe the Canadians in the group will tell us also a little more about what might be DEIB unique in your lived experience here in Canada that the Americans may not think about.
I'm going to throw one in only because of the organizing of this event. And I have to give real credit to the venue here. They thought of stuff that we didn't, right? And then we're like, oh my God, like, for example, we had someone request a halal meal. Well, if you're in other parts of the world, that's standard, right? And I'm not saying that our friends in the Americas don't think about that, because trust me, I know there are enough in the States that do that. But if you're translating this event, say, halfway across the world, that's not even a question, right? That becomes part and parcel of the event itself. So that would be one example I would give for that. And I have to say, the event people here, when we said, oh, we've had somebody request a halal meal, how is that going to fit in? We got it. Oh no, we might need a kosher meal. We have somebody who can do that too. They were actually going to have it brought in specially and everything. So they really looked after that. So that would be one example I would look at in terms of translating it, Amy, from having organized this. I've learned a lot. Anybody else? Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Kira.
I was just going to say, as the American side of things seems to be a lot more political with respect to
The two Americans are laughing.
to all of that, and it's like, why does it have to be political? Just relax and like.
I am not a politic. People are not politics, yes.
Oh, I thought you were going to apologize. Would have been good, but anyway.
I think one of the things we also need to think about is cultural issues and cultural appreciation, right? So we're scheduling WordCamp Rochester, and we're scheduling it in October, and I make sure that it's not on Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, because we have so many people who come from Canada that I don't want to lose their ability to participate. There's issues already with WordCamp EU next year falling on a Muslim holiday, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we need to think about the people that we're including and the people that want to be included to make sure that we are not stepping on cultural issues as well.
This is our mic. I actually have a story. I always like when I do these talks to talk about my own privilege. I was very privileged to get to the position where I am. I have, not just in tech, there are positions that I have gotten over white men because English was not their first language and it's my first language, and they had an accent. So there are many things where, as an American, even when I mean well, I make mistakes. I told this story at WordCamp Rochester, but I mentor people all over the world. I talk to people in China, West Africa, Mexico, Canada, all over the world because I love people. And I had a mentee one time from Nigeria, and one thing I talked to them is like, how are you just doing in general? And she said she was just hungry. She was starving. Like, she was like, oh, I'm just, she said it as a phrase, like, I'm just starving, and it's kind of hard to focus these days because I'm not eating. Instead of me saying, oh, what's going on, I said, oh my God, you don't have food? Do you need food? I was like, I'll call around, I'll send money, I'll send things if you need to get food, I'll do whatever I can to feed you. And she was like, Naisha, wait a minute. And I'm keep going. I'm like, no, I need to get you, make sure you can eat and make sure you have the energy to do this and become the software developer you want to be. She was like, Naisha, I am Muslim. It is Ramadan. I am fasting. I was like, I just assumed because I wanted to be this good person, this ally for my mentee, I didn't consider her worldview that she is a Muslim. I have Muslim friends and family. I knew it was Ramadan, and I still went, American does not have food. She's in West Africa, and the optics of this is so bad. She didn't take it that way, but when I thought it through, I was like, the optics of how I responded, even though I meant good, was so bad. So considering a worldwide community, a global community in general, especially when you're working with people, is so important to avoid situations like that.
Well, I think that goes back to, Michelle, what you were saying. It's like, it's not until we are made uncomfortable that we then realize, and we make good on it, right? So I think that's probably where, go ahead.
It's okay to make mistakes, right?
Yes.
We learn from mistakes. I make mistakes every day. I vow every day to be a better person tomorrow than I am today, understanding that I'm a fallible, feet of clay human being, because that's who we are. We are human beings. Human beings make mistakes. I have friends who are non-binary who used to use binary pronouns, and it's so hard to remember how to gender people, and I will misgender and apologize and try to do better next time. And those people who know me understand that I am striving really hard to remember those things, but that my brain doesn't always function the right way. But intention really matters a lot, and knowing that you've made a mistake, acknowledging it, and doing better also is very important. Now, there are mistakes that are hard to recover from. I'm not going to say there aren't. There are absolutely mistakes that are hard to recover from. Canceling people happens, but I think that in our community, we can learn not to do that and help others be better.
We got another question over here.
Thank you. I'm going to preface this by saying, Aida and I, we have been to multiple word camps internationally. We love coming to Canada. The last time we were up here was in Calgary, and we were just so welcomed and blessed to be able to participate and do the things that we did. And one of the things I wanted to say was, Canada is the most welcoming nation we have been to. Not to take away from anybody else, but, and this leads to my question, we are so welcome to be here that we were even told at Starbucks something was going on, that Canada is so friendly. They're quick to embrace you as honorary Canadians. And I think one of the things that Naisha was saying, and Michelle, please don't be scared to walk up to a person of color and start talking to them and asking them questions. And it's interesting when me as a black man, African American, talk to people, I always get this expression, oh, you talking to me? It's like, what do you, but I think what broadens the DEI is to talk to each other as human beings, as opposed to, oh, here's this black guy talking to me. Does he know about technology? And I'm standing there like, okay, I have a master's degree. I've been part of WordPress since 2010. I make websites, metaverse sites, all of that. But I'm still a person. So do not be scared to come up to us and talk to us. Now, you preface that also by, okay, you're at a technology conference, an international conference, so you want to come and learn. And my brother right here, Naisha's husband, this is the first time we met in person. I have so many questions I want to ask him, seeing him for the first time, but other people as well. But I step back a little bit because I want to make sure you receive me and him and others of darker complexion correctly and not to be scared. That goes into my question. How do you think that WordPress can more engage black men, men of color, to come into the community and be taken seriously with their knowledge? Because I've applied to multiple companies, and I know why I'm turned around. One, because of my color. Two, probably because I'm from the United States. And three, I am open. I'm a teacher of 33 years, and I share with my students of all backgrounds. Do not be scared to share your background, because all of us in one way or another are immigrants. If we look back at where our families originally came from and the struggles that they went through. And a lot of people either don't want to think about that or deny it. But it's empowering to know where your family came from and share it. So thank you.
I think it goes back again to going out and talking to people. So when I was approached to get into WordPress, it was by Kenneth Elliott. He is a Black man in WordPress. And he just came to me and he said, you know PHP? Have you ever considered WordPress? And I said, the blog? Because I had a WordPress blog. I had a cringy teenage blog in WordPress. And he said, no, to build websites. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. And so, had he not come to me and said that, I would have never gotten into WordPress. I was actually going to be an app developer. And so I think going out and talking to more people is the thing. I am a large Black woman, and in the southern United States, if I run up to a group of people really fast, they may get intimidated or scared. I don't care. I still do it. And because we're going to be friends. And yeah, I start off with a joke usually, or we're talking about food. I'm like, ooh, that looks good. Or, hey, it's hot out here today. Oh, I need to go in. I might melt, something. So it comes back again to talking to people. And Black American men specifically don't get that outreach as much because people are intimidated. And again, we just need to remember that we're all people, and you could be, missing a chance to meet your next best friend. And going off what William said, just a side thing, Canadians are so friendly. This morning we were at a coffee shop, and this man left his baby with us, and he just went off, and he told the baby, he said, you stay there, and he walked off, and the baby was even talking to us. He was like, "Duh, duh, duh." I was like, oh my God, these are the nicest people I've ever met, the nicest babies I've ever met.
You've been adopted.
Yeah.
You're welcome to Canadian. You're in.
I will learn the metric system for y'all.
One American at a time.
I had the pleasure to moderate a panel of Black men in tech last summer. As part of our underrepresented, I'll talk about it. We do not sell anything. There's nothing to buy except knowledge from underrepresented in tech. And Naisha moderated 2 panels, I've moderated 2 panels, and Allie Nimmons moderated 2 panels, but we made sure we were not part of the population that we were moderating. I am not a Black man. I know that comes as a shock to you. But one of the things I learned from those men is there's so much pressure on Black men to represent and to carry some kind of legacy for their families, to be able to do more and do better going forward. That almost broke my heart to hear the pressure on these gentlemen. And so one thing that I would say is specifically to your question, William, is that for all of us to realize everybody carries a burden that we don't know about. Sometimes it's individual, sometimes it's cultural, and to be aware of that. So, when you ask somebody, we never want to tokenize anybody, but when you ask somebody who you think would be really great on a panel or who would be really great to speak, if they say no, honor that, because don't pester them. There is so much pressure on every person, and sometimes somebody who's more high profile gets asked to do a lot, and that puts a lot of pressure on people. You are high profile.
Kara, go ahead.
I would say, as far as it's kind of on the same thing. It's everybody's got that unconscious bias. I know for speaking for myself that I didn't have a lot of Black people in my life when I was growing up. So I know I'm I know there's got to be an unconscious bias there somewhere. So I try to not do that. So I hear you. And yeah.
I can't speak as a Black man either. However, growing up in the community that I did in Toronto, I can honestly say that I'm very thankful for the growing up that I did have. I was very privileged, maybe not rich privilege, but I was privileged. Okay, I had what I needed when I needed it. And I moved from Burlington, Ontario to Toronto. And in Burlington, I had all kinds of friends. There were Black people on the street, not Black, whatever. One of the people that actually lived on our street was the coach for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who was Black. And he's one of the most respected in the CFL. and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But funny thing is when I moved to Toronto, that's when I started experiencing racism, and I got called all kinds of names in the book. And my principal said to me, "You get called that name, which I won't mention, and you bring them to me, and we will have a discussion. And it is a zero tolerance." And one guy did it. I brought him down to the office. My principal said, "You need to, you're going to stop this right now. You will never say that again, or you will be suspended." 8 other guys did the same thing, but they only did it once. Not one of them had the gumption to ever do it again. But it wasn't until I moved to Toronto that I felt that. But it is, people like me who are going to go and stand up for others as well. I'm sure that I stepped in front of Kira a number of times, during her transition when she probably could have done it herself, but I am that protector. And I think me as being the extrovert and the protector that I am, I need to take a step back and let those who need to voice for themselves. So that's something that I have learned, or I'm trying to, over the years. So that would be my take on it. And that's the only thing I'm going to sort of contribute, because we are over time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Please thank my panel.